There are 979 bridges in Wisconsin, 661 bridges in Minnesota in poor condition, along with nearly 7,000 miles of highway between your two states that need repair. And now, after years of talking about infrastructure, we're finally getting it done. Finally.
All right, this is what they call the road show, the day after the State of the Union. President Biden in Wisconsin touting his infrastructure bill to supporters earlier today. Mr. Biden was able to take a victory lap on infrastructure during the State of the Union yesterday. Basically, the deal is I come to Wisconsin, I tell you all the great things I am bringing, therefore you should call Congress and tell them to give me more of what I want. In this case, it's now called Build a Better America, the rebirth of the Build Back Better bill that failed. Daniel Lippman is with us now of Politico, one of the most popular and best-connected reporters in Washington, joins us now. I was thinking about the road show today. Typically, it's a week long. You got two cities often in one day going around the country. Has the White House had to tone things down because of Ukraine?
Yeah, I think they're mindful that the president is kind of expected to be in the Situation Room meeting with his national security advisors on a daily basis. And so you can't go on this huge trip around the country since, he needs to be talking to Zelensky and needs to be huddling with his advisors on how best to support Western democracy and make sure Russia doesn't keep encroaching onto NATO.
You're so well sourced inside the White House. The lead up to the State of the Union, how did they come up with the 1/6 Ukraine, 5/6 domestic policy breakdown of the State of the Union? In retrospect, are you hearing any regrets that they wish they had talked more about Ukraine, more unifying, more about foreign policy and less about domestic policy?
I'm not hearing a ton of grumbles that they didn't do a good job on the speech. They did rewrite the speech a lot because they start working on the speech months ago, and this invasion only happened last week. But I think they were keeping in mind that most Americans, foreign policy is not their top priority. And so, of course, they're scared when Vladimir Putin threatens nuclear war on the country. But for everyday Americans, their top issues are things like inflation, the cost of college tuition, paying off those student loans, gas prices, not what's happening in Europe.
Yeah, 80% of Americans say inflation's a problem. It is the number one issue. The one group that the White House is probably doing a little bit of outreach to right now is the Progressive Caucus. Take a listen to some of President Biden's biggest applause lines last night.
We should all agree the answer is not to defund the police. It's to fund the police. Fund them. We're screening, we're securing commitments and supporting partners in South and Central America to host more refugees and secure their own borders. Make more cars and semiconductors in America. And our schools are open. Let's keep it that way. Our kids need to be in school.
How much damage control is going on today?
Well, I think, this is a pretty moderate president. And so he is not beholden to the Progressive Caucus. A lot of Democrats I was talking to today.
Hold on, Daniel. I mean, the Progressive Caucus took him to school on the issue of, I think it was student loans and also on the eviction moratorium. So this is a president who, back last year at least, when he came, he said he thought he was FDR, he was going to remake America.
Yeah. Well, obviously he did not, and so he was not FDR. And so he had to backtrack, and you also have a midterm election coming quickly where most Americans are making up their minds the next 4 months as to who they're going to vote for, and they realize they had to tack to the center. And so that's why you didn't hear a ton of talk about climate change. You didn't hear much about student loans. And so I think they realize that they need to get to a place where meet Americans where they are. Remember, early on in for the last year until a couple months ago, the White House was talking about how inflation was going to be transitory, but those prices are still pretty high, and that has left them kind of short. Yeah,
they're going higher, and President Biden said, I'm going to do something about gas prices. Hasn't been able to do it. Oil went up another 7% a day. You could be looking at an average of $4 of a gallon of gas. Still, though, sort of no real change in the White House's energy policy on domestic oil drilling. Has the White House table gamed what are we going to do from a policy standpoint if gas gets to $5, $6, $7 a gallon, $140, $150, $160 a barrel?
Well, they're always, gaming out different scenarios. But I think they're also worried that gas could increase if the decision is made between Europe and the U.S. to say we're not going to buy any more Russian oil and natural gas, which is a decision that might come to try to kind of starve the Russians from that revenue, and then they'd have to find alternative sources. I think they're probably trying to get through the winter in Europe because Europe is heavily reliant on Russian energy. And then once we're into April, then there might be more courage on the European side, but that's going to probably lead to higher prices. And I asked Jen Psaki this question last week, which is, are they worried that Americans are not going to be able to take the hit at the gas pump to try to protect Ukraine? And she didn't. They're still kind of hashing that out.
Yeah, you also think about there's the timeline here up until April for the Europeans, and then there's the timeline towards the midterm elections. Daniel, thank you very much.